Welcome to Chapter 11, Concluding the Audit. At this point in the audit, most of the fieldwork is complete, but before issuing the opinion, there are still many critical tasks that need our attention. These final procedures aren't just formalities, they are legal, strategic, and evidence-based moves that protect both the auditor and the user of those financial statements. They're all of the little loose ends that need to be tied up before we can move on. So what are we going to be talking about in this video? There's 5 things that I would like to go over. So the first is attorney letters, then we have written representation, subsequent events, final analytical procedures, and finally documentation and communication. So let's jump into attorney letters. Auditors are responsible for evaluating the legal contingencies that might be out there within their client's environment. To do that, they need to send a letter to the client's attorneys, anyone that they've had legal workings with during the year, to ask about any material litigations, claims, or assessments. If the attorney doesn't respond or is vague, it could raise a red flag for a scope limitation. Next, we have our written representation. So this is essentially a signed statement from management to the auditors saying, yes, we gave you all the information and we stand by it. Also, management is taking responsibility for those financial statements. It covers areas like completeness of records, disclosure of fraud, and any other important representation. While it can't substitute for audit evidence, it does provide a little bit of a safety net for the auditors and reinforces management's accountability. Next up, we have subsequent events. So these are events that happen year after year end, but before the auditor's report is issued. And we have 2 different types. So the first type is conditions that existed at year end. So the auditor is finding out about them, but they were there at year end, and these would require adjustment to our financial statements. The second is conditions after year end. These would only require disclosure. So let me give you an example of an event. So let's say there was a fire in the warehouse that destroyed 25% of the inventory. So that would be really important for users of those financial statements to know. If that fire took place on December 28th, then that inventory would not have been there on December 31st, and we would need to adjust those financial statements to show that that inventory is no longer there on December 31st. However, if that fire took place on January 5th, well, it's still important. Users of those financial statements would want to know about that fire, but on December 31st, that inventory was still there. So that would be where we would disclose that situation or the fire. Auditors must actively search for these events and document their response. So typically this would be like reading things in the board of directors minutes or inquiry. Those are how we can typically find some of these subsequent events. Next, we have analytical procedures. So we know analytical procedures are looking for trends within the data. Analytical procedures at this stage offer a high-level reasonableness check. Do the financial statements make sense? Are there trends and ratios consistent with our expectations? And if not, we might need to do a little bit of a deeper review even this late in the game. So analytical procedures can be performed at 3 different stages in the audit. In the very beginning, in the planning phase, in the middle, while we're evaluating and gathering evidence, that's the substantive analytical procedures, and then here at the end, the final analytical procedures. They're required in the beginning and they're required in the end, but they're optional in the middle. We'll also finalize our audit documentation, prepare required communication to the audit committee or others charged with governance of the organization, and ensure that all of the procedures are complete as of that audit report date. This could include noting the report release date, the point after which the auditor typically has no further responsibility for that client. final thoughts. The audit opinion isn't just a signature, it's really a culmination of everything. And the final phase is where that story kind of gets sealed. They take these final procedures seriously. They're the last chance to surface material issues and protect ourselves professionally and deliver a defensible opinion. So that's all for this one, folks.